Got
Good
it.
morning. You are listening to WXOX 97.1 FM in Louisville, Kentucky, or streaming on artxfm.com. This is LVA's Artebella on the radio. And my name is Keith Waits, and I'm your host. The show is produced by Louisville Visual Art. Today, we're going to be speaking with Edward Nardie White. He devoted his life to leading the African American Drum Corps he co-founded with his wife, Zambia Kruma, and I'll probably said that wrong, Ed. I'll apologize and ask you to correct that for me in a minute here. In Louisville, Kentucky, 3 decades ago. Together, they inspired youth from their West Louisville neighborhood to thrive by connecting them with the art and cultural traditions of their African ancestors. After leaving this legacy to his successor, Mr. White decided to pursue his lifelong passion for photography. His first public photography exhibition, Edward Ed White, the Historian, took place at the Kentucky College of Art Plus Design, and he is currently a part of Through Their Eyes, Future, Present, Past, an LVA exhibit for Louisville's Metro Hall that is open now and will be on display in Metro Hall through November 23rd of this year, which is 2021. Ed White, how you doing?
Man, I am doing wonderful. I am truly wonderful. As you mentioned, I am pursuing my second career, which was my first career, which I had to stop to do River City Drum Corps. But now, since retirement, I've picked it back up and enjoying it, and a whole lot of other art mediums. So life is good for me. You hear people talk about when I retire, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Enjoying.
I love it. You know, you remind me too of our friend Elmer Lucille Allen. You know, who had a terrific career, but when she retired, she decided to get busy. You know,
yeah,
and became an important artist and leader and inspiration in our town. So let me go back. So you said this was your first career. So when did you first start doing photography, and how did you get going?
I first started doing photography as really a hobby. As a hobby, I was doing a factory job. I was, oh Lord, I was working in International Harvesting in the foundry. Oh my God. Ooh, yeah. Woo. Well, you've seen the photographs of the iron sparks flying all over the place. That's what I was doing. And in my spare time, I was doing photography through a friend. I always wanted to do it as a child, but you know, my mother had 7 children, so I wasn't buying no cameras and paying for no film processing. And so, but you know, it just always lingered. It always lingered. And then a friend of mine had a camera, and he said, well, here, give me $75 for the old Pentax Spotmatic. And, real antique. And from there, I just started, you know, capturing things, you know, because photography is history, and that's another one of my passions. And so from there, it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then I got a job at the Portland Boys and Girls Club. This is probably 76, somewhere along in there. And they said, well, you know, we know you can do this job, but you got to have a degree. That's one of the requirements. I said, okay, so if I am going to go back to school, I'm gonna do something that I like.
Sure.
So I enrolled at Jefferson Community College in the photography department. But what I didn't know is that I had all of these prerequisites to do art history, drawing. Oh, I said to myself, I just came here to take pictures. So the first year and a half, I had to take business writing, art history, freehand drawing, commercial design, you know, so I had to do all of that before photography. So, which was a great path, because then it let me understand composition, you know, the art aesthetic of photography. And so from there, it just kind of picked up. The only mistake I made, Keith, was I wanted to be a photojournalist.
Mm.
But what that meant was after graduating from JCC, I had to go to Western Kentucky University. But by then I was old. I'd done the school thing once. I didn't want to go live in a dorm. I just didn't want to do all that. So I took commercial photography, which was, it was okay. It was okay. And I worked at a company that was called Paul Schultz Companies. And are you familiar with Service Merchandise and Romar Gleason and all those?
Sure.
All right. So that's what we did. We produced catalogs. How many ways can you shoot a toaster? That's what we did. I mean, and by then, after doing all those product shots and every now and then you might do some models, but it was basically 90% product shots.
Right.
And my forte was golf clubs. So if it ever was, if it was a catalog, it ever had the golf club spread, which would probably be about 5 pages, maybe 50 to 100 shots, I knew that's what I was going to do, So every time that catalog came out, I said, just give it to me. Just give it to me. And that kind of ruined my desire for photography. Because then it was no longer a hobby. It became a job. So that just soured it. But it was still in the back of my mind. So once Walmart came in and put all of those companies out of business because they was all over the country. When Walmart came in, it just wiped it completely out. The whole industry went south. And so from there, I just lingered around for a while. When I started working with, went back to the boys club, then that's when it picked up, like 1990, like 90, it came back. And basically because I had to start teaching photography classes. So then it came back, and now it's, because I see and I learn from a photograph. And that's, and then it just led me to it. And then last summer was a banner year for me. Oh gosh. I kept saying, that photojournalism bug came back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And well, you shoot in the streets. All of the work that I've seen, yeah. You were shooting the protests. You were shooting on election day, but it seems like you just shoot all over. And I'm guessing it was mostly downtown and the neighborhoods on the west side of Louisville. But yeah. You're just documenting the life of people in all these neighborhoods and in the streets. And of course, the last summer there was so much you could shoot. There's no excuse not to have a subject, right?
Yes, and you were so right, because I was sitting here in the first night, and I'd given one Jerome Baker, who is the associate director at River City. I'd given him a camera, and he was out there, and he kept telling me, "Man, I'm down here," and I kept saying, "No," I said, "I'm too old. I'm getting tear gas." I said, "Man, I'm too old to get tear gas." And so the next day, from that point on, I was down there, man, and it's such a, I don't know how to describe the experience of, in the center of it, where all of the activity, and then on the fringes, the city was like a ghost town. Downtown was like a ghost town.
Right.
It was like a ghost town, and you could look, from any direction from downtown area. Nobody's moving. And it was just such an adrenaline as we were down there. you saw so many people from all different walks of life that were there. And I had to get my cell phone fixed, so I had to go to the Apple store, and it was a young man was there. He said, "Man, I'd never done anything like that in my life. I think it's some of the best things that I've ever done was to be down there in the protest." And this kid is, American apple pie. And when he was looking through my phone, he saw some of the image. He said, "Man, I was right there. I was right there." I said, "Yeah." And you go down now, and now when I come through there, it's like, well, we're back to you. So everything is back to where it was. The square is clean. The flowers are out, and it's like compared to a year ago, it was pandemonium.
Right. Well, and whatever, and of course, just to provide the context, of course, I think most people would know what we're talking about, but we're talking about Black Lives Matter protests that really happened every single day after the murder of Breonna Taylor, or at least it was a little bit later, because we didn't find out about that incident for a little bit, but that happened all year long. It happened in other cities. And you're right. I kept wondering if the protests were going to continue after the winter had abated, but you're right. That whole area now seems back to normal, whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So when I look at the images that you do, sometimes it feels like those people. Do you and when you were showing me things, sometimes you had names on there. Do you when you stop and photograph somebody, do you what kind of conversation do you have with them? Because several times the people are looking right at you, like maybe they've stopped, or maybe you've caught them in a certain thing. But what kind of interactions do you have other than the camera?
Most of those interactions are through the cameras. It's like a spirit. When Native people never wanted their photograph taken because it says it captures their spirit. But 90% of that's what that was. They would look at me and we would look at each other, and they would see me with this camera. And from the looks on their face, they would say it's okay. They would say it's okay, and then I would snap the photograph. But most of them were just that interpersonal spiritual connection that we had as I looked through the lens and they look back at the lens. And most of the shots that you see, if we didn't make that eye-to-eye contact, I didn't take it. So that's just something. It's just a feel. It's just a feel that everyone knows that we're in agreement. Everyone knows what we're doing, and everyone is agreeing for it to happen. Right. If a person shook their head, I didn't do it. But if we looked at each other and our eyes locked on, and the camera locked on, then it's a go. It's a go. Now there were some that I did have conversations with, but most of it was happening so fast. I mean, it was just, it was like a glance, okay. And by that time, another image comes up, and then the images, they were just coming at you. It was just coming. And I was just snapping away.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because of course, there were many photographers, I would imagine, down there. We know John Cherry was down there photographing, and probably many other people, but he's showing some of that work. But also, it seems to me like on some level too, if you have made the decision, the choice to go and join the protest, or to be there as a part of a militia, you have images of some of the militia members that came to town. It seems like you've chosen to put yourself in this public situation that I think you would have to be pretty naive to not know that a lot of cameras are going to be around, television, all that stuff's going to be out there. So it seems like that maybe helps the photographer in that sense, that people have put themselves there.
Yes. And in saying, and in that statement, they have come a part of the canvas.
Yeah.
They have become, and you have agreed that you're fair game and you're part of the canvas, or you wouldn't be here. When I did the Angry Viking and the Proud Boys, I was kind of apprehensive before I went there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have this, but those guys I got a chance to talk with, and they were bent in their ideology, but yet they were still good people. They were really fighting for what they believed in. Because as I got to talk with a lot of them, we had a lot of open conversations that left. When we left, we just realized that we were just people. But when I first got there, I was kind of saying, I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one, because, I've heard all of the stories, and the stories didn't fit me being an African-American man in here with all of these rebel flags and these Trump flags. And it's like, whew, Lord, I said, well, you asked for this. I guess you're going to, as I mentioned earlier, I guess you're going to become a part of the canvas. But once I got in and I just melted. And I got some real good images. And then one of the images was about this guy showed up, and he had a sign that said, we don't want y'all guns here in Louisville. And when he first walked in the middle of the group, they was heckling and took a sign away from him. And then the guy that is the Angry Viking came up and told him no. When his entourage showed up, they said, no, you can't do that, because now we are violating his First Amendment rights, and we can't do that. So they gave him a sign back. But before that, it was like, got kind of scared a little bit. And these guys, those guns got live ammunition in them. Mm-hmm. And it was like, one of them, as we were having a conversation, and one of the photographs, he said, you want to hold it? I said, I don't know about that. He said, yeah, well, here, go ahead. No, I said, the only way I will hold it is if you take the round out. And he popped the round out, and it's, they look menacing. They are light as a feather.
Yeah. Light
as a feather. And I'm looking at these guys with all these guns, I'm always pitching, old time gun weigh a ton, and they got all these bullets on them. And it's like, wow. It's just the way they think. And I got some real good photographs of them, real good photographs. The one thing that I missed in that, as a photojournalist, as I called myself doing, is they were supposed to go to the Belvedere.
Right.
But they made a detour and came down to the Black Lives protest.
Right.
Oh my God. I wish I'd have been there for that one. I missed that, because I had to get up at their rally they started forming at 8:30. So I had to get up about 7:30 just to go down there and be with them. And then I was down there from like 8 o'clock till noon, almost 1 o'clock. So by then I was wore out, and they went down. So I missed that part. But yeah, it's a spirit that, as I look at you and you look at me, and we agree that this is what we're going to do.
Well, listening to you talk, it reminds me that in the exhibit at KICAD, Kentucky College of Art Plus Design, there were two images paired. One was of a militia person, and Andy Cousins over there identified that because I couldn't tell. They were so outfitted with a mask and the goggles and the helmet, but he said it was a woman. And but the way they were standing, weight on one hip and the arms a certain way, and had looked at you, like you say, before you took your picture, they were looking at you. Then there was another picture of a woman, a Black woman in the protest, who looks like maybe she was just sort of stepping out of a crowd, and she just pulled her mask down, and she also just happened to look at you right before you shot. But there, when you pair the two images, the physical stance and the way the body is positioned is the same. And of course, it immediately makes me think like what was happening there is you are identifying the commonality,
Yeah.
that as all of these things, are these issues, this polarization in our culture, that everybody has to be one side or the other. You got to choose a side and be against people. That a lot of what your photographs do is point out, and it's not always an overt thing. It's just there when you look at, particularly when you look at more and more of them. But that pairing, particularly the commonality, that we all have much more in common than we have that's dividing us. But we don't seem to. I don't mean to be preaching, but
No.
that's exactly what I was picking up. It seems like you're talking about that when you talk about your interactions.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I got into and each one of those shots that you're in referencing to, I remember them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like I'm looking at you and I'm getting you in the same stance, and I'm looking at her as the same stance. So if we put y'all together and we could really think about what's going on, you would find out that we are all right. We all right. And that was one of the amazing things that I was able to pick up with that now. And now, as we've all withdrawn back to where we were, back on our sides, so now this gray area in the middle is going to get grayer, because I'm digging my heels in, you're digging your heels in, and who knows where we're going? So that was a very, very exciting time for me, and it's that's all I can say is it was a very, very exciting time. It was a time in our country that maybe we could have gotten it together, but now we're back on our sides of the fence, and nobody's willing to cross over.
Right. And the irony is that both groups, and when I say both groups, there really wasn't just two groups. It really was, you could break it down into all sorts of different groups.
Yeah.
That came around because it was a flashpoint summer, but that everybody that came out was exercising their First Amendment rights. They were all out there. That was a common thing too, that instead of being in conflict, it's like, you have the right to be out here with that sign and saying that, and we have the right to be out here, and as long as we're not hurting each other, nobody's, then we all have the right to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And within that, there was a guy. There were 3 white guys from Corbin, Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and they were heavily armed. And they were, I guess they were their individual militias. And another group, and when you think about it, it's I had some photographs of them. So then a white group that was aligned within the Black Lives Matter ran the other white guys away that were from Corbin.
Yeah.
And we don't want you down here. And we can come, and we don't want you down here. You need to go. And it was like, I'm sitting here watching this saying, wow, how is this going to end? How is this going to end when this group is exhibiting his First Amendment right, this group wants to do their First Amendment, right? But now y'all telling them that they got to leave. It was very, very interesting. It was a very interesting, and I was just glad I was able to photograph it.
Well, so now that this now that summer has passed, in this relatively more normal time, it's hard to refer to anything as normal still, as we're still in the whatever later stages of this pandemic. How often do you go out and with your camera and photograph now?
I've been kind of on a hiatus because I'm getting my studio together, and so that I can really have a place that I can devote to doing my art.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had been doing it in my house. My house is a mess, always a mess. I got this over in this corner. I got this in this corner, and it's like, what you gonna do? You know, you can't. The more I neglect getting my studio built, the longer it's gonna keep me from back out there, because there's still a lot of images that I see that I say, man, you should have your camera with you. You should have your camera with you. You should have your camera with you. But I've just not, I've got to get that focused so that I can, now separate my social life from my artistic life.
Right.
So, so by the, I'm going to say by the end of November, by the time the exhibit comes down, I think I will be back out there. But now that I'm here, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just going to again start making sure when I leave the house, I got my camera with me.
Right. That's always, I've heard so many photographers talk about stories about how they would encounter something purely by chance. And then every photographer has a story about encountering something that they just hate themselves that they didn't bring the camera that one time. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I was in the and this is one I really hate. I was in the Natural Bridge up on the edge of the Red River Gorge.
right.
And I down, and this guy had been on a mountain bike, and it was a very, very hot day. And he had gotten off his bike, and it's this stream that comes down out of the mountain. And he had got off his bike. He was so hot that he got in the stream. And as I was trying to reach my camera, there was a car behind me that just forced me to leave that moment. So, by the time I got back around, he had gotten on his bike and it rode off. I'm still beside myself because I missed that shot. I missed it. I should have said, look, but I was being politically correct. I am blocking the middle of the street. I'm at a stop sign. I need to move through the stop sign. So, but yeah, we as photographers, that's what we do to ourselves.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't touch a little bit on River City Drum Corps, and I just because you talk about history, I feel like I know the history of this is documented elsewhere, but so when did you start the River City Drum Corps?
1990. I started it. The idea came to me when I became the director of the River City. Lord. When I became the director of the Parkland Boys and Girls Club at 32nd and Green, Harlena Trombone had an African dance company called the Imani Dance Company, and they were at the 10th Street Y, and it had to be they was renovated and they needed a place, so they came to. I let them use Parkland for their rehearsal. So when they left and took their drums with them, the children kept saying, "That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do." And I didn't have the means. I didn't know how to do it. So Cecilia Wooten, who was the community, her job was to develop community arts. She came in and said, "Look, we have some funds that we want to do community art. write this grant. And I wrote the grant, brought in a Ballet McKnight out of Baltimore to teach us how to make the drums. And we made the drums, and then, the pieces slowly started falling in place. And it was only supposed to be for a summer. That's all. It was just a summer program. And here it is 30 years later, still in existence.
Right. And it's a vital force. And it's now one of the, what was it, 4 years ago, it became one of the organizations that gets sustaining funds from the Fund for the Arts, which is,
yes.
And to emphasize the importance of that, that a lot of people don't know, for the Fund for the Arts to accept a group into that circle of receiving those sustaining funds, you have to have a proven history of being able to sustain it without their help. So which which you guys were doing it, and they just wanted to come and help it and help it along, and maybe kind of ensure that it would last. But that means you guys were doing it and making it happen, and were a success story. That's what that really means. Were you a drummer?
No.
You just responded. You just saw, it's like a photographer. A thing was there in front of you and you responded to it.
That is exactly how it happened. And it's hard to believe when I tell people I don't have no rhythm. It was one of those things that it was like, you're it, you are it, you make it happen. And, but as you mentioned, being included in the fund, I would thank Christian Boone for recognizing that and decide that she's going to make a change. Because the past, and I'm not going to mention the name, the past executive director, he just was not going to do that. That just was not something that he was going to ever do. And he was, everybody knows how he was. So, but
well, there were 9 organizations that were invited at that time, and it was a big deal. I mean, I've worked in the arts. I know everything you're talking about, and it was a long list. A lot of great organizations have benefited from the fund for all these years, but getting added to that list was so rare that I actually spoke to somebody at the fund, and I said I was going to write a thing about it, because I thought it was a big deal, and I didn't know why there wasn't more press about these groups getting added. And I said, so for example, I said, when was the last time anybody got added this way? And she said, nobody here knows. Like, so it was a big deal. Yeah.
A very, very big deal, because what they would do before Cecilia came in, they would throw out little bits of money.
Yeah.
Like hush money, hush money. I remember one time he gave me $25,000, but then 5, maybe 6, 7 years later, before he ever thought about it, and then no, and then it was always no until Christian came in, and then how they do that kickoff for the fund every year.
Yeah.
He asked me, I bet they're giving you lots of money now. I just walked away from it. I didn't even answer the question. I not answer the question,
Well, yeah, and when you say $25,000, there's probably listeners out there thinking like, wow, that's a lot of money. But you and I both know, to run these organizations and you talked about, like, when when you go out and when you travel somewhere and take these kids somewhere, you got to feed them. There's you have to have a certain number of adult supervisors. You have, it's no small thing, particularly when it's an education mission.
Exactly.
The costs add up. Yeah. $25,000 doesn't even pay a decent salary for one full-time employee for a year, so
it's nothing. $25, because every year now, like right now, I'm when I was doing it, I'm at the end of the season. Okay, so now it's like October and the new season has started. Okay, so they just had the open house. They bring kids in, and so now what they have to look at is, starting right now until this time next year, he's going to need $150,000 just to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to keep it open. We ain't talking about no salaries. You know what I mean? The salary, the money that they get, you couldn't even I don't even call it a salary. It's like a stipend.
Right.
You know, you're looking at well, all right. Example, the drum line. You want to set a quads. You're looking between $1,500 and $2,000. And one day I walked in, and my kid, whatever they ran the drum corps. All I did was manage.
Right.
They took what they wanted and when they wanted it and how. I walked in one day and it's like, they was all gathered around the screen. They was all happy. And it's like, I said, I went over, what y'all? They said, these are the marching uniforms we want. And they designed it. I said, yeah. And they said, what y'all? Yeah. I said, well, there's $600 a piece. And we need 30 of them. So y'all do the math. Well, we know, but that's still what we want. So through the grace of God, however, we're talking $25,000 investment for something that we're going to use maybe twice a year. The only use that we know we're going to use it at is if we get selected for the Derby Parade. We know we're going to use it for that. And then if we do use them twice a year, it's $400 to get them cleaned.
Right.
And you just can't let anybody clean them.
Right.
Back with who knows what colors they might come back.
Right.
So,
that's the thing. Once you make the investment, you have to keep making the follow-up investment.
Yeah. Because now we've got 4 more children that came in that we don't have a uniform for.
Right.
So now we got to, that's 4. So, that's $2,400 that we got to spend because we've got 4 children that we don't have uniform for, or the children that we bought were little are now big. So that's an ongoing expense. And like you say, $25,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. When my budget was, I was raising 120, at least a minimum of $120,000 every year. And I'm not taking a salary. So, it's like, really? Yes, really. Fortunately, I was my pensions, jobs and doing workshops. That's how I was able to, getting contracts with schools. Right. That's how I was able for me to live. So,
Well, and you have a lot of style about you, Ed, so I'm sure at least people don't understand. They look at you and they saw those kids and it was so impactful because I saw them. We marched together one year in that 21C fundraiser.
Oh my
God. I don't know if you remember that one, but we marched that block. And I was thinking like, oh man, we're going to be behind the River City Drum Corps. Like we can't follow those guys because they're going to totally, like it's hard for us to look good following those guys, but it was impressive. But see, that's the thing, is like you work to make it impressive on a shoestring budget, and people think you must have the money. They don't, you know what I mean? It doesn't look like you need the support because you've made everything look good.
Yes.
And sound great, but yes, it all costs.
Christian Boone was a game changer.
Yeah.
I'm looking right at her. She gonna kill me for not knowing. Can't get her name out of my brain right now. Before Christian, I'm looking right at her.
Oh, Barbara Sexton Smith.
Yes. Yeah. Barbara. Barbara laid the perfect foundation for Christian to walk in and finish her work.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, she was the greatest thing that happened to the fund with the change of administration.
Yeah,
She understood it. She
I would
understood.
agree. I think that's an apt description.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, art is a very powerful thing and it's a very life-changing thing. And when you look at those children that you followed
Yeah.
with that 1C, I got doctors, I got school teachers, I got lawyers. I've got a group of very, very successful children out of those children that were just little bitty kids when we was leading the parade.
Right. Right
And
on.
that 21C thing I think was one of the best things that ever happened, in the parameters that it did happen for arts in the city. I always look forward to that. And I guess, the matter of time at work and all the investment in it, they just thought it was, how things in our field come and go.
Right. And just so we've both called it that 21C thing. And so maybe I should just clarify. It was an evening fundraiser for 5 organizations that were children's arts education, and
Yes.
our children's fine art class program and the River City Drum Corps. And I'm afraid I don't remember who else was involved that year, but it was a big, they closed the street. We did a march and you guys played and we had these big murals and then there was a big party inside and
Yes.
that's where all the money came from. But yeah, it was a good time that day, and I felt proud to march with you. So
Yeah. That was a great event, Keith. And that's the one thing I like. The one thing that I will say about art is it allowed me to grow. It allowed me to meet a lot of people. It allowed me to go a lot of places. And through art, I've got lifelong friends, lifelong relationships
yes,
that not only do I have, my children have, and they always get back together. And I guess we got to have a reunion and just to hear them talk, just to hear them talk, it's an amazing thing about that. Lets me know that what we did, what we created has made made a very positive impact on a lot of people, including myself.
well, and even more importantly, that you built something that you could walk away from, that can sustain and keep going, even past you. That's the real legacy, that
Yeah.
your own personal interaction was, I'm sure, very, very meaningful, but the fact that you built something that can last.
that is the greatest thing, as you mentioned, is Keith, because a lot of things happen. The founders in a lot of organizations stay around too long.
Yeah.
We stay around too long. We old. The children that I raise and the families that I raise, that dynamic is altogether different. And what I did with that group, I couldn't do with this group, and I don't have the energy to deal with this. So, it's like, and a lot of people say, well, I didn't think he was going to quit. I didn't think he was going to give it up. I said, if you really are into what you're doing and it's not about you, when it's time to leave. And it was time to leave. Once I was able to get this grant from the community foundation called Capacity Building. Once I got that grant and I pulled all of the pieces together, I said, I see y'all. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. You hear me? I don't, unless they call me, I don't go to their events. I don't do anything because they have to build it.
Right.
Face of it has to be them. Can't be me.
It's theirs now.
It's theirs. It's your baby rocket, because I'm over here doing something else.
All right. Well, speaking of getting out of here, we about run out of time, Ed White. This has been such a pleasure to talk to you. I
Yeah,
swear, and
yeah,
it has been whenever I see you in person. But it's so
yeah,
great to hear these stories and to see
yeah.
what you're doing. So, just a reminder, this is Ed White. He is part of an exhibit that we have up right now, Metro Hall, called "Through Their Eyes: Future, Present, and Past." And we should also mention that he is one of the three artists in that exhibit. The other two being Chip Kafali Calloway and William Duffy. That runs at Metro Hall. It's available for you to see through November the 23rd. Thank you so much today, Ed.
All right, man. Have a good day, Keith. You're a good person. Your organization is good. Keep up the good work.
All right.
I'm gonna
Thank you, man.
get down
Appreciate
and shows. All right.
it. Yeah.
All right. Take care. God bless.